guys, it's Jordan, and do I have a good one for you today? Growing up, my parents used to say all the time, there's no handbook for raising a child. And although I've never been a parent, I have been a transgender child. So I wanted to compile and share some of my experiences as well as some other experiences of trans people that I know in order to create like a Jordan's hand guide to raising a transgender child. Before we get started, I have to give a disclaimer. This video is not a one-size-fits-all guide to the transgender experience. It's important to remember that everybody's journey is different. The second disclaimer that I want to give is that although all the sources that I cited will be down in the description box below, I encourage you to do your own research. Do not take my word as the gospel. The best thing that you can do for your child is listen to them. They can tell you what they need. I took the liberty of making a table of contents for anybody that wants to skip around, or for anybody that wants to come back and look at this video later so you don't have to kind of cut through all of the information yourself. The table of contents is as follows. We're gonna look at some background and some vocabulary, dispelling some myths, some compromises / general advice, and then interviews. Okay, well, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, you think your child might be transgender. What even is transgender? According to Google, the word transgender relates to a person whose gender identity does not correspond with the sex registered for them at birth. If this sounds like your child or someone that you know, or you might be experiencing something called gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is defined as a sense of unease that a person may have because of a mismatch between their biological sex and the gender identity. This sense of unease or dissatisfaction may be so intense it can lead to depression and anxiety and have a harmful impact on daily life. Now, to keep things simple, we're going to cover two different types of transition. You have a social transition and a medical transition. A social transition is defined as changing your name and or pronouns, appearance or expression such as clothing or hairstyles. And a medical transition is defined as the part of transition in which a transgender person undergoes medical treatments so that their sex characteristics better match their gender identity. This can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. Okay, so for this, there are multiple different ways that this could happen. You have some people that only social transition. They never get on hormone replacement therapy, they never get any kind of surgeries, they're just happy with the way that they are. You have some people that socially transition first, and then later they start their medical transition. That's what I did. I came out as trans in May of 2020, and then I started hormone replacement therapy in December of 2022. So I social transitioned for 2 years. And then you have medical transition. There are some people that medically transition and socially transition at the same time. I know there's a lot of rhetoric online that can get all confusing. They're snipping the parts and they're changing the different things, and your journey is yours. And you can take it as fast or as slow as you want to. It's a journey, not a race. It's super important to remember that there's no one right way to be trans. Gender-affirming hormone therapy consists of either feminizing, estrogen, or masculinizing, testosterone hormones. Many transgender people take hormone therapy as a part of a gender transition to help their bodies and appearance align with their gender identity. An example of this, I'm on HRT. First of all, if you've made it to this far in the video and you don't know, hi, I'm Jordan, I am transgender. I'm on HRT, been on HRT for about a year. And so what it's talking about here, it says, many transgender people take hormone therapy as like to help their bodies align. So I've developed a lot of, I'm not gonna do that. I've developed some breast tissue growth over the past year that I didn't have before. But this can look like all kind of things. For trans women, breast tissue growth, you have like body hair slows down. There are different things that I covered in my 6-month HRT update video. If that's something that you want to see, I'll put it upstairs in the cards for you. And then I'm not sure of all the different things for trans men, but with the added testosterone, I know that a lot of trans men have like a voice drop, and some of them develop facial hair. It's just all different kinds of things that can happen to you. You should definitely do some research and talk to your doctor. And finally, we have gender-affirming surgeries. According to Google, gender-affirming surgeries are any kind of surgical procedure that helps the person's body align with their gender identity. Gender-affirming surgeries can look like getting breast augmentation in order to have breasts, or having breast tissue removed in order to have a flat chest. Gender affirming care is for everyone, not just trans people. If you hit the gym because you're like, oh man, I'm a man, I gotta be buff and get my muscles, for the ladies and stuff. That's gender affirming. It affirms you as a man to have muscles, right? It affirm like that. If you're a woman and you like to wear makeup, or if you do something, if you do an action that makes you feel more secure in your gender, that is something that is gender affirming. Just wanted to throw that out there. I'm sorry that my lighting keeps changing. The sun is playing tricks on me, and I'm doing my best to not get frustrated. Nonetheless, I hope that the definitions were very helpful for anybody that might have needed them. And next, we're going to move on to dispelling myths. Myth number 1. Children shouldn't be able to choose their gender. They can't drink, they can't drive, but we're letting them choose something so big and monumental like their gender. Why? My rebuttal to this is simply, as a kid, you knew what your gender was, so why can't we? What I mean by that is, as a little boy, you might have played with trucks, or you might have done football, or on the other side, stereotypically, as a little girl, you might have played with dolls or done ballet or cheer or something. You went through childhood with numerous indicators surrounding you, telling you that you were either a boy or a girl. And for most people, you went through life not really questioning it because you agreed with what you were being told. You knew that you were a boy or a girl because it felt right. It may be hard to imagine, but everybody doesn't feel that way. So, like, when did you first know? And then, kind of what's your story? Like, how did you know? When did you first find out? How did that happen for you?
I first knew before I knew the term, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find out the term until I was 18 years old, but I always knew that being a girl or anything that has to do with femininity wasn't necessarily like my first choice. A time where I was like 12 or 13, there was this family friend that always came around and I had the hugest crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always act kind of like a guy around her, like try my best to be seen as like, I guess, dominant and masculine, even though I definitely did not come off that way because I had like the highest pitched voice in my life, man. Like it was terrible. I can literally remember the one time, and I only did this like one or two times, but I wrapped a scarf around my chest right before I went to go play outside with some friends. I don't know why. There was nobody I was trying to impress.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I wanted to do. I wanted to be seen with like a flat chest before I went out and played with my friends. To answer your question better, I'd say I've kind of knew since child, around the age of like 10 through 13.
I have stories, the similar stories, but on the opposite end of the spectrum. My mom, she had like, I would get home from school and there'd be like an hour gap between she would get home from work. And so I would go to her room and play at all of her stuff. But I was like, okay, mentally remember how it was so you can put it back exactly how it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know what you mean, just like wanting to do those things. I used to take pictures of them. I would like take, when I was old enough to have a phone, I would take pictures and like, okay, and I would just look at the pictures and like,
That's there, that's there, that's there.
yes, it's true, it's true. Yeah.
Honestly, like looking back, like I've written like songs super, super young about like, oh my gosh, would y'all still love me if I was a girl? And like all that stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, Trey, what's going on? What's going
Yeah.
on?
So I would say I had a very interesting story. I
Mm-mm.
would say around 5 was when I knew, because in my head I was around all women.
Mhm.
I didn't know, but I had my uncle, I had my dad, my older brother. I didn't think that I was like them. I thought I was like my cousin. I thought I was like my mom. I thought, like, in my head, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna grow up and be like my mom. This is what I thought. That's how I felt. And then it wasn't until I noticed the differences between me and my cousin, and I was like, well, why are we different? And then that's when I was told, because you're a boy. And even though I knew what boy and girl was, I didn't know the differences and how it was classified. So when they start explaining that, I'm like, wait, so I'm not gonna be like, I'm not gonna grow up like you? No, 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 you're not. you're gonna grow up, you're gonna be a man. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be that. I remember my grandma. I remember this very vividly. It was a Barbie movie that had came out, the Pegasus, the one with Pegasus, because I was obsessed with it. And McDonald's had the toys, and when we went, they gave me a boy's toy and they gave my cousin a girl's toy. And my grandma was like, "Do you know the difference between these two?" And I'm like, "That's Barbie and that's Ken." And she's like, "No, that's a male and that's a female. Which one are you?" And I pointed at Barbie. And she's like, "No, you're that." And I was like, ah, "Okay, y'all keep telling me this, and I'm not,
Tell me
I'm
how
not
it
buying.
feels.
I'm not buying it. Y'all keep telling me this." I just knew I didn't want to. I had a fear of always masculinizing, like that was a fear. But I think at some point I was like, I don't think there's anything I could do about it because I didn't know anything about transitioning or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm just like this now. So I thought the only thing you can be was gay or straight. That's it. That's what I was taught. So that's all I thought. So I was like, well, then maybe I'm just gay. But I never felt like that.
Myth number 2. Transitioning is permanent. What if they regret it? Here's the thing about transitioning. Almost everything is reversible. Almost. An example of this is the testosterone blocker that I take. Well, actually, I don't even know if I mentioned it, so I'll boilerplate a little bit. For my hormone replacement therapy, I'm on 2 pills, estrogen and testosterone blocker. The testosterone blocker that I take, for example, slows down body hair growth, right? If I were to stop taking those pills today, after a couple days or weeks, or I'm not really sure the time frame, but after a little while, my body would begin to produce testosterone again, and the body hair growth would speed up. I can't necessarily speak for trans men. You'd have to do your own research. I'm speaking from the perspective of a trans woman. When I talked to my doctor, the only 2 things that she told me that were permanent were breast tissue growth and reproductive loss weight. I know some people like reproductive loss. Hold on. From my understanding, with the reproductive loss, it doesn't happen to every trans girl. And the time frame in which it happens, if it does happen, is different for everyone. Remember, I told you earlier that everyone's journey is a little different? My doctor told me there are some trans women that after years and years and years of being on hormone replacement therapy, never lose the ability to reproduce. However, there are some trans girls that after a couple months or a year or so, they can no longer produce sperm that produce children. You know what I mean? It depends on your genetics, your body type, all of your whatever. I don't have the answers to that one. The ability to reproduce for trans people is a case-by-case scenario. If having children is something that you might want to do in the future, I suggest having your sperm or eggs frozen. However, when we're talking about children, it gets a little sketchy because as a 13-year-old, you shouldn't be really thinking about whether or not you want to be a mom or a dad. You can't raise another person. You're not even raised yet, you know? So I understand the concern about medically transitioning children from that standpoint. I do. I'm not delusional. The second thing is the breast tissue growth. If I were to stop taking my hormone medicine today, the breast tissue growth wouldn't just disappear. It's here. If I didn't want it anymore, I would have to get it surgically removed. Outside of those 2 things for us, and then for trans men, I know like once your voice drops, it doesn't go back. I don't know what else. I just wanted to put this information out there to let you know that although some of it is permanent, not everything is permanent. In my opinion, there's not really enough research about people transitioning and what it does to our bodies to let us know for sure who does and who doesn't lose the right to reproduce. I guess I can't really dispel the myth. I can just kind of dispel like half of it. Transitioning is permanent. Not always. Some of it, you know. The next myth that I want to tackle is that children cannot get surgery whenever they want to. Trans people are not trying to mutilate your children. That's not true. I want you to know, depending on the state that you live in and your insurance provider, will determine at what age your child can get surgery. The following states do not allow gender affirming care under the age of 18: Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Utah, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia. If you are a trans person that lives in one of these states, I am very sorry. I hope that you are able to stick it out and that when you are old enough, you are able to move to a place that will allow you to have the gender affirming care that you need. The word recommended was thrown around a lot for whenever a child should or shouldn't be able to start medically transitioning, depending on which state you live in and your insurance provider. The earliest thing that your child can start is puberty blockers at the age of 10 to 13. Of course, this is only with the consent of the parent or the guardian, and it is believed at this point in time that all effects of puberty blockers are fully reversible, meaning if your child were to get on puberty blockers and then for whatever reason they decide to stop, they would continue on with puberty as normal. Actual hormones can be introduced around the age of 15 to 16, again with parental consent, and depending on your insurance provider and what state you live in. Now, depending on your insurance provider will determine whether or not your child has to go get seen by a psychologist and diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Most effects of hormone replacement therapy are assumed to be reversible outside of the few that we talked about earlier, aka breast tissue development, or for trans men, the voice dropping. Number 3, top surgery. Top surgery is chest. According to the research that I did, top surgery can only be introduced around the age of 17 if the child has been on hormone replacement therapy for at least a year. Again, this depends solely on your insurance provider and what they require. Some insurance companies require that your child be on hormone replacement therapy for more than a year. And then the big topic that for some odd reason everyone on the internet is so concerned about, SRS. And for those that don't know, SRS stands for sexual reassignment surgery. For short, we'll just call it bottom surgery. Bottom surgery requires that the child in question be 18. Period. Your insurance provider will determine how many years your child must be on hormones and how many letters from a mental health professional that they need for SRS. Transitioning is a very long process with many stops along the way. I want to dispel the myth that your child wakes up today and I'm trans, and then by Friday your child has brand new genitals. First, I'm not even comfortable with the conversation of children's genitals online, and I don't appreciate how the media makes it seem like we're pushing this agenda to mutilate children and it's a mental health disease, whatever that they want to say online. There's a whole process. Your child wakes up at 5 or 7. Hey mom, I think I'm a girl. Or, hey mom, I think I'm a boy. All that you can do under the age of 10 is socially transition. You can buy your kid a pink backpack or a blue one. You can let them grow their hair out or something of that nature. But other than that, there's nothing that you can really do under the age of 10 or 13. Then, depending on where you live and your insurance, from 10 to 13, you can start puberty blockers. That's it. 15 to 16, you can introduce hormones. 17 is breast surgery. And if they've done all the steps, then the earliest that they could get SRS or bottom surgery is 18 years old. For the purpose of this video, I just wanted to dispel the fact that there are 10 and 12-year-olds getting bottom surgery. That's not happening. Now that I've assured you that no one is trying to mutilate your child, I want to move on to some alternatives/advice. What are some things that you wish your parents or your family would have done differently?
I would say as a child gave me more freedom to just be myself so I wouldn't have felt like I had to oh my god, what's that word I'm looking for? Suppress.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wish that I had the space to just blossom.
One of the biggest things I wish they did differently was probably not send me to a private Christian school where literally in the handbook it says that you can get kicked out for being queer or transgender. And um yeah, I think that I love the people that I've met. My friends there at the high school, love them to death. They're amazing. But you know what? We really didn't have to go that route. We didn't. That was
Yeah.
unnecessary. But it is what it is. I know it's really hard to raise queer individuals, especially like Black queer individuals. Um, but yeah.
I just wish that people would just allow them kids to just be.
Kids.
I wish she would have refrained from forcing me to wear girl clothes when, even if I told her I was, trans or lesbian or anything of that nature, I wish me saying I don't want to wear this would have been enough for her to not force me to wear certain clothes that I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
because it resulted in me feeling like I had to confine by certain standards
Mm-hmm.
outside of her household. So I feel like if she had like just if I would have said, "Oh, I don't want to wear that dress. I don't want to wear that skirt," wish she would have just been like, "Okay, well, what do you feel comfortable wearing?" And then after that, I feel like it would have saved me from a lot of social situations where I felt like I had to do something I didn't want to do, especially as a queer person.
Welcome to the wonderful world of socially transitioning. If you aren't comfortable changing your child's legal name on their documents like their ID or their birth certificate or their license, try testing out preferred names at home. It's safe, it's free, and it gives your child a safe space to experiment with different names without the pressure of having to change a legal document. If you're not comfortable with changing your child's gender marker on their ID or their license, for anyone that doesn't know, the gender marker is the M or the F. If you're not comfortable changing the gender marker on your child's license or their ID, you can test out preferred pronouns at home. Has anyone seen so-and-so today? I haven't seen her since she got home from school. Someone tell someone that their dinner is ready. You can test out pronouns at home. Self-expression is key. At home, you can experiment with different hairstyles. You can experiment with nail polish or different outfits. You can also experiment with jewelry. For example, when I was a kid, I wanted my ears pierced so bad. Not even like a whole bunch, just the lobe. And my parents would not let me do it, even though my mom and my dad both had their ears pierced. I had to wait until I turned 18 to get my ears pierced, and it was a great experience with my friends, but I wish that I had the experience of my mom coming with me to get it done. If your concern as a parent is this is permanent, I want you to challenge yourself to experiment with things that are non-permanent. Ear piercings can be taken out and the hole will close eventually. If you let your child grow their hair for a little while to see how they like it, they can always cut it later. Nail polish comes off. Clothes can be donated or returned. It's there. I feel like there are so many things that you can do at home that are free or inexpensive to give your child a safe place to experiment with how they show up in the world. Another thing that you can do, this one isn't so much so at home, but it's still on the free spectrum. You can check your child's school policy to see what their policy is for transgender youth. Some schools will allow you to update your child's information in the system so that the teachers can start using their preferred nickname or name and pronouns. Overall, the world is not very kind to trans people, and I hope that you as a trans parent, I hope that you as a parent with a trans child are able to create a safe space for them to express themselves at home. This video was a lot, not even because of between the information and the light changing, it looks like it's like 10:30 at night. It's like 4:13 in the afternoon. This video was a lot, and I'm just glad that I was able to get it out. I hope this video was able to help somebody. If it helps one person, that makes me happy. If you are a parent with a trans child, my heart goes out to you. If you have any questions that I didn't answer or something else that you'd like to cover, drop a comment below. I'll do my best to answer it as quick as possible and to help you out as much as I can. If you are a trans child watching this video and you're going to show it to your parents, be careful. I just want you to be safe. I hope that you have an amazing journey and that you are surrounded by people that love you and cherish you. Yeah, I really hope this video was helpful. I know that I wish that my parents would have watched something like this when I was being raised. Other than that, I love you guys very much. Thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you guys in my next one. Peace and love you guys.